Hi folks, welcome to SQE1, and here we explore VAT, value added tax, in our chapter 5. So in this session we try to understand value added tax or VAT, which is one of those topics that we all find intimidating until we realize it is just a 20% add-on that must be tracked correctly. For solicitors, VAT is not part of their income. It is money collected on behalf of His Majesty's Revenue and Customs, who we know never forget. By the end of this chapter or session, you will know exactly how VAT appears in ledgers and how it is billed and how to avoid the classic exam mistakes. Try to just understand how it works. It looks intimidating, but it is not intimidating at all. So let's start simple. Output tax in VAT, the solicitor charges the client. Input tax is VAT, the solicitor pays the supplier. At the end of VAT period, the solicitor pays the difference to HMRC. So think of it as a balancing act, what you collect minus what you have already paid out. The exam often tries to blur these, so keep them separate in your head. So at that point, it is output tax and input tax. So we need to understand what they are. So paying tax to HMRC, we got an example that will just try to explain everything. Imagine the firm owes HMRC £4,000 for the quarter. When paying that money, the firm reduces the HMRC liability by debiting the HMRC ledger and reduces its cash by crediting the business bank account. By debiting the HMRC ledger and reduces its cash by crediting the business bank account. I said it twice on purpose. The simplest way to remember this is when money leaves the firms, the cash account is credited. When the liability is settled, the liability ledger is debited. No drama, no surprises. So, bill of cost with VAT. So let's look at Mr. Thompson's bill. Fee £5,000, VAT £1,000, 20%. Total 6,000. The accountant must show the fee and the VAT separately. First, we debit the client's ledger for 5,000 and credit profit costs. This creates the debtor. Then we debit the client another 1,000 and credit HMRC. This keeps the VAT ring-fenced. At that point, and examiners, they love splitting fee and VAT because many candidates, they forget that they need to do for both of these entries. So, VAT on disbursement. Now, disbursement, some are VAT exempt, such as court fee, stamp duty, land registry fee. These must never have VAT added to them when recharged to the client at that point. So keep in mind those are VAT exempt. But electronic searches, those are subject to VAT. So if a search costs £200, the solicitor bills 200 plus VAT, that is 40, pounds. Why? Because HMRC takes the view that online search services are taxable. If in doubt, ask whether the service look like a buying something situation. If yes, VAT is probably involved at that point. So now understanding the agency method. The agency method applies when the invoice is addressed to the client, and that's what is questioned most of the time. The solicitor is only the middleman. The VAT has nothing to do with the solicitor. The ledger records only the amount paid on the client's behalf, including the VAT. But the HMRC ledger stays untouched. This method is simple. You pay the money, show the payment, and step out of the VAT picture entirely. So let's apply this. and we have a case of Miss Helen Wright. She has an invoice in her own name for 1,500 plus 300 VAT. The solicitor pays 1,800 on her behalf from the business account. We debit her ledger for 1,800 and credit business cash for the same amount. No HMRC entry, no reclaiming, no complication. A good rule: if the invoice has the client's name on it, do not touch the HMRC ledger, not at all. Understanding the principal method, that's different from that one. Now we would have to touch the HMRC register. The principal method is more involved here. The invoice is addressed to the solicitor, which means the firms must pay both the net cost and the VAT from the business account. Because it is the firm paying the VAT, the firm can reclaim it from HMRC. Only the net amount goes into the client's ledger. This is where most exam mistakes arise. So keep an eye on whose name appears on the invoice. That's what will explain everything in terms of agency or principal method. So let's break down this principal method in example of Mrs. Clark. So Mrs. Clark's consultant invoice, we got it. The consultant charges 1,600 plus VAT for 320 in the solicitor's name. So the firm pays £1,920. We debit Clark's ledger for 1,600, and that is the true cost to be recovered. We debit HMRC for 320 because the solicitor will reclaim that VAT, and the business cash account is credited for the full 1,920. When the solicitor later bills Mrs. Clark, both the solicitor's fee and disbursement are shown along with VAT on both. This ensures the VAT trail is clean and correct. So, abatement fee. Sometimes fees are reduced after a bill has already been issued. This is called abatement. If the solicitor agrees to reduce the fee by 150 plus 30 VAT, the original entries must be reversed. We debit profit cost by 150 and debit HMRC by 30. Both amounts are credited against the client's ledger. This mirrors the original record, but in reverse. Always reduce fee and VAT together. The exam will penalize students who reduce one and they leave other. So, bad debt. When a client does not pay, the amount may become a bad debt. Suppose a client owes 2,400 including 400 VAT. If the debt is less than 6 months old, you simply debit bad debt for the full amount and credit the client ledger. No VAT relief yet. If more than 6 months old, the solicitor can reclaim the 400 VAT as well. If that case, we debit HMRC for the VAT and credit the bad debt ledger to reduce the loss. Remember, time matters in VAT. 6 months. You need to keep in mind that timeline. So tips before we finish, the big SQE takeaway: always check the name on the invoice. That single detail decides agency or principal treatment. Do not add VAT to exempt disbursement, and always split fee and VAT entries. Many candidates lose marks because they combine them. Finally, remember that HMRC ledgers must show every VAT moment clearly. If the VAT treatment feels tricky, slow down, isolate the invoice detail, and work from there. VAT becomes easy once you respect its structure. I wish you all the best. And thank you very much for attending today. If you don't understand it, just go through it again and you will. Trust me. Ta-da.